This time last year, the Auburn Tigers seemed to be set at quarterback with a Heisman hopeful in Jeremy Johnson. Well, Jeremy Johnson's still on campus, but the quarterback situation very much up in the air entering spring practice 2016. Mark Rogers TV bringing in Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation to help us sort it out. Jamie, what appears to be a two-man race here with Sean White, who stepped in once Jeremy Johnson had his issues the first 3 or 4 games of the season. So play this one out for us in regards to what you see out of these two guys and what you expect to see in the spring and as we get toward August camp.
Mark, I think you asked a question that nobody really knows anything about if you're not inside the Auburn complex. And if you are, I'm not sure if you know the answer to that question either. Jeremy Johnson, like you said, was a guy that came into last year with huge expectations. He was a handpicked quarterback from Gus Malzahn's staff from their days the first time at Auburn, and then at Arkansas State. He was their guy, and he came to Auburn with big expectations and looked the part as him. Unfortunately, as he took over the starting reins as a John White was another guy that came in with some expectations, and once he was given the reins, they held him down for a little while, just trying to make sure of things. And once they opened him up, he looked really good, and then he got injured. I don't think anybody is really sure what is going to take place when it comes to those two gentlemen when spring practice opens this coming Tuesday.
Well, I'll let you know what I saw, Jamie. Jeremy Johnson, his couple stints, especially that opener against Arkansas when Nick Marshall, as you well know, was suspended, looked like a house on fire. He was hitting all the passes. He was carving up the Hogs, and he looked great. He hit like 12 of 16, 250 yards, a couple touchdowns, and in other spot duty in garbage time looked good. He looks the part. He stands tall. He's a big, strong kid. He's got a cannon. He looked confused and lost, though, in those first 3 or 4 games of the season. Then he came back late in the season, and at least he didn't turn the ball over. He looked much more proficient. He didn't set the world on fire, but then there were also some limitations on the outside in regards to help. Sean White steps in the middle of the season, and he's not the guy that's going to light it up in terms of a dynamic dual-threat quarterback. But he looks like he makes the right decisions, and he's got a strong enough arm to succeed in the SEC.
That's correct. And if you're looking at it from that standpoint, I think best case scenario for Jeremy Johnson is he is a Jason Campbell type guy at Auburn. He's the big, tall guy that stands in the pocket and can leave the pocket if needed. When you look at Jeremy, he runs pretty well in a straight line. He doesn't change directions very well, but that's because he's a big guy. He is by no stretch of the imagination a Cam Newton type quarterback as far as mobility. You mentioned Sean White. I really do like Sean White. I think he sure that it will take place in the system that he is presently in. So that's a big thing. Right now, I think they've tried to put square pegs into a round hole at this point, and they've got to decide as a coaching staff whether they're going to be able to coach these gentlemen with their current skill set, or do they have to find a quarterback that's going to fit their system. That's going to be the internal thing that's going to go on at Auburn. Do you coach the quarterbacks to fit your system, or do you coach your system to fit your quarterbacks?
Jamie, you just asked my next question. That was going to be it. Now, what would you do if you've got these two kids in place? Would you stick with the system and say, he fits the system, we're going to go this route? Or, hey, we really need to tie our horses to this kid, and then we'll change the offensive system? Or do you look at the rest of the personnel and see the fit with the other players as well, the offensive line, the running backs, and the wide receivers?
I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer with that. I think most people would like to think that they could take and coach their players and coach their system to fit their personnel. However, this past season at Auburn, whether it's on the coaching staff, whether it's the players, whether it's a combination of everything, which is most likely the case, they were not able to coach these kids inside their current system. Nobody looked comfortable at all at no point. And that's the players, the coaches, everything seemed to be in disarray, or just a step behind. Disarray may be too strong of a word. Everything just seemed to be one step off as throughout the entire process. Jeremy Johnson never looked comfortable. Even when they brought him back in, they did not let him go for fear that the reads would just be poor. Sean White looked good, then got hurt, but he's not going to scare anybody with a dual threat system under what Gus Malzahn typically does. And enter John Franklin III. And if you know that he's going to be successful, then you know more than everybody else, simply because nobody's really sure what he is other than really, really fast.
Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation, our go-to guy for Auburn football, with the Tigers getting to spring practice here in just a couple days. And you brought up the wild card. John Franklin III signed as a 3-star recruit to Florida State. Spent some time at East Mississippi Community College this past season, and at that point hadn't played much football for about 2 years, but he's coming in guns a-blazing saying that he's going to take this job. He seems to be very confident, or at least he talks that way.
I don't blame the kid for being confident. If he watched the Auburn football game last fall, he saw it and said, you know, I can play quarterback there. There were some Saturdays that I said the same thing. I think I can do that. So, and that's not meant to be disrespectful towards the kids. They did what they were asked to do, and they tried to their fullest. I'm not sure that they were put in the situation to succeed. So for John Franklin III to feel that way, I don't blame him at all. But in fairness, for that statement, he's got as many question marks on him as Jim Carrey did playing the Riddler. The one thing that is for sure about John Franklin III is he has legitimate speed. He has sprinter speed, and that was legitimized by his high school career as a sprinter in the state of Florida. He was nationally recognized as a sprinter. Everything else will depend upon him, and we'll see where he ends up. He has more than adequate arm strength. I've read some things that said, you know, they question his arm strength. I don't. I watched the film. He's got plenty of arm strength. Now his accuracy, that's a whole nother statement. He wasn't even the full-time starter at East Mississippi. They used him more as a wildcat type role. In that sense, they let him throw it some, but he didn't establish himself as a clear-cut starter for East Mississippi. But he does fit what Gus Malzahn, what his system says should be your quarterback. Now, that will be upon John Franklin to be able to execute that. He has the tools.
Kind of interesting to know, Jamie, that the coach at East Mississippi Community College said that while he was not choosing Franklin to be a starter full-time, he did think that the kid could play in the SEC. That's kind of difficult to add up. It's also interesting to note, as you well know, that this kid was Nick Marshall on the scout team in preparation for Florida State Auburn in the BCS National Championship game.
Well, you know, I'm not real sure, you know, how that went. I know Auburn let one slip away that night. So hopefully John Franklin was able to carve up the Florida State defense, and that would, as far as in practice go, and that might bode well for him. And I like the confidence. I hope he's as confident as he sounds. I like his speed, good arm strength. He has the opportunity, and I think he's going to get every opportunity to establish himself as a starting quarterback for Auburn University this fall. And I think that that's the only way that they have a chance to be ultra successful. I do like Jeremy Johnson. I do like Sean White. I think they would be really good in certain system fits, and we'll see if that system is going to fit them this year, or if Auburn has to move in another direction. Both kids can play. It's just not every kid can play in every system, so we'll see how that goes.
And the kid with the long shot is Tyler Queen, who had elbow surgery and missed all of 2015. All right, we're just a few weeks, just a couple days away from Auburn spring practice. Jamie Hancock joining us from Preps Nation to help us sort of out this quarterback situation as much as possibly can be at this point. Always appreciate the time, Jamie. Hopefully we can catch up with you in a couple weeks and see how the Tigers are doing on the Plains.
Absolutely, Mark. I certainly appreciate your time today.